Preparing to live stream right now. Preparing to Okay, we are ready.
This regular City Council meeting of May 18th, 2020 is called to order. City Clerk Norris, would you call the roll?
Mayor McClellan.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Burns.
Here.
Councilmember Radner.
Here.
Councilmember Weiss.
Here.
And Councilmember Edgar.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Next on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Yeah. Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Next is the consent agenda. These are routine items presented without discussion. They are the following: regular City Council meeting minutes of May 4th, 2020, special council meeting minutes of April 27th, special council meeting minutes of April 28th, Planning Commission meeting minutes of April 13th, resolution designating Kevin Yee as the agent for the City of Oak Park with regard to the Oakland County West Nile Virus Reimbursement Program. F, resolution to opt into Oakland County's Urban County Community Development Block Grant, CDBG programs for the program years 2021, 2022, and 2023. Finally, request to approve an agreement with Berkeley School District to collect their 2020 summer tax levy. Their motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Motion carried. Are there any visiting elected officials? Seeing none, we move on to the annual budget presentation. City Manager Eric Tungate.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. I'm going to give Crystal just a moment to pull it up here. Okay, can everybody see that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so of the, seven or eight budgets that I've now been the steward of creating here in the City of Oak Park, this one has by far and away been the most interesting for obvious reasons. We've done much of the departmental meetings and council work sessions, and now hopefully the final budget approval remotely. And before I go through this presentation, I want to thank Director Sandra Crawford and her staff, among many other people who were very, very instrumental, Vicki Brooks and many others who were very instrumental in making this happen. This has been a long, laborious process. So I want to start out, next slide, please. With the 3-year budget, I think everybody knows that we do a 3-year budget, which allows us to model and plan for unforeseen changes. So you'll see in the budget itself, and I think each of you should have your document that was placed in your mailbox last week. It allows us to project out the 2 out years after next year. So again, our fiscal year, July 1 through June 30. And then in our budget recommendation, we're also assuming that normal operations will resume before July 1st. And if that happens, we will not need to dip into our general fund balance in fiscal year 2021. Next slide. Okay, so I'm going to go through this chart very, very briefly. A copy of my presentation will be provided council members after, but I wanted you to get a general sense of what we're considering in terms of budgeted revenue losses and direct costs associated with the pandemic and how we're, from a financial crisis standpoint, how we're managing it. out of the general fund, and you'll see in the left column here, I've got fiscal year 1920. On the right column, I've got next year's budget, July 1st, 2020. And these are our best guesstimates in some cases for what we are expecting. And as you can see here, revenue loss wise, our technical and planning inspection operation, for example, has been basically shut down from its normal capacity. And in current year, meaning fiscal year 1920, we expect to lose almost 50,000. We already know that we're going to lose almost $500,000 in revenue sharing, fines and fees. The library, we don't expect to lose any necessarily in the current year, because whatever we lose, they'll make up for, but we do expect some in the next fiscal year. The district court, we're saying we expect the district court to lose about $320,000 in revenue. And you know that we're the funding unit. So if they lose money and their budget's out of whack, then the city of Oak Park has to make up the difference. Parks and Recreation, just the same as there are going to be savings in Parks and Recreation, there's also revenue losses from programming being chopped. So our total estimated revenue reductions are going to be right around $1 million. And then on top of that, we have these direct COVID-19 costs. And these costs are, PPE, temporary glass. In the case of the 24,000 you see there for fiscal year 2021, we have 24,000 slated for permanent glass changes. And let me explain to you what those are. We are going to be putting up permanent glass in recreation at their counter, in technical and planning. City Hall's glass will be enhanced. So if you've seen City Hall where the temporary glass is now, there will be permanent glass that will model that same height, extending it upwards about 2 feet or so. So the general fund total impact in the current year is about $1,063,000. And then we expect the impact going into the next fiscal year to be right around $1 million. And then major and local streets below that are going to be heavily impacted. So many people have been talking about how, no one's traveling up until this point. So for the last few months, it's been basically zero travel throughout the state. I'm going to move on to the next slide. So, you might be thinking, well, how are we going to take this all on? I mean, those are some enormous costs. Well, we've made some changes to our pension amortization schedule, which still keeps us within the scope of best practices in our state plan. By changing our amortization schedule from an 18-year to a 24-year cycle, we're going to save, somewhere around $750,000 or so for each of these years. City Council allowed us to continue the furloughs and limited seasonal hiring, and you can see the savings there. Those are pretty good numbers, but they're not going to be enough, obviously. I think the big one that's very surprising to me is by not extending the Brownfield TIF on the Armory site. So back when a couple of you were on City Council at this time, but back when we agreed to extend the Brownfield TIF for the FedEx project and other projects down on the Armory site, this is one of the reasons we did that. So in a pinch like this, we could say, Brownfield TIF, we're going to let it expire, and 370,000 is going to come directly into the general fund, not to mention other funds, including the library, which will see about an $18,000 a year uptick in revenue. And then unfortunately for fiscal year 1920, we're going to have to dip into our general fund balance to the tune of about 560,000. As I mentioned at the outset, the good news is that as of right now, assuming we get back on track for July 1 operation or July 1st operations in the new fiscal year, we are not projecting to have to use our general fund balance, but this is why we have a general fund balance. Next slide. So here are some additional cost saving measures that we are taking on because we want to make double and triple sure that we're going to be able to meet our demands in terms of costs and other things associated with the COVID-19 crisis. We've established a hiring freeze. We've actually had a hiring freeze in for a few years. The hiring freeze has actually become more stringent now, which we are not hiring for any new positions. We are hiring for limited backfill positions. Next. We have effective immediately, this was now a couple months ago, I have limited employee travel. So any employee overnight travel will need my approval. And traveling for education and workshops and things like that, unless they've been pre-planned, generally we're not letting them do that. And then we've also canceled, as you know, city council members have canceled a series of events. And, you know, there's a revenue offset to some of these savings. And then we've also reprioritized some of our capital expenditures for projects. One of those is the sidewalk improvement program. City Council has authorized us to stave that program off for a year. So we would begin that program in the spring of next year. And I think getting into more of the traditional budget presentation items, one thing I think is interesting as you look at this slide, I usually show this slide every year. But one thing I find most interesting is that if you add up all of the losses on the left side of this chart from the real estate crash of 2008, if you add up all those losses and then you add up all the positives on the right side there, because we've been doing pretty well since, you know, 2015 or so, you still are only about 72% of the value that you had pre-2008, meaning we still have to make up about 28% of that taxable value that we had before that. So we're trending in the right direction despite this current issue, but we're not there yet. I think it's also important to note, and I wanted to show this in 3 different areas, because in 2008, before the crash, 1 mil was worth $728,000. 1 mil in 2014 at its bottom for us was about 432, and 1 mil today is about 523,000. So you see that we've made some ground, but here again, we're still not where we were. Next slide. And I think it's important to talk about the total general fund balance here. So the policy that City Council has set up for the city government is that we maintain at least 10% of expenditures as our general fund balance, our rainy day fund. And as you can see, I came in 2012, and pretty much since 2013, we've exceeded that policy requirement. Unfortunately, because of COVID-19, we're going to eat into it a little bit, but any savings that we have at the end of this year, when we close it out, of course, we're going to go back and try to replenish the fund balance. And again, I think now everyone is seeing how critical it is to have this safeguard. So, you know, when a crisis like this hits, and maybe worse, that we are prepared. This is not like the Oak Park of old. This is the Oak Park now that has their ducks in a row and is ready when things hit. Oak Park in 2012 was not, you know, just trying to make it through and avoid state receivership. Oak Park today, I mean, we're debating between having a 17.5% fund balance and a 20% fund balance. Much different conversation than before. Next slide, please. So here are some of the budget highlights. As I mentioned, we have about a $3.81 million rainy day fund. Next one. It's hard to believe, but we're seeing minimum cost increases in the new budget year. At least we're projecting minimum cost increases. And that just goes to show you, you know, we're able to manage our costs greatly. And we've seen even lesser healthcare costs during this COVID-19 crisis for the last 2 months. Healthcare costs have basically fallen off a cliff because people are not using our healthcare. And there you go, total general fund expenditures, they're $92,000 less than our current fiscal year projection, which is almost unheard of. I think it's important to note that Assistant City Manager Yee and his team has completed, for all intents and purposes, completed the lead water service line replacement project. You know, we've talked about this before, council members, but so many other communities are, you know, struggling to get through COVID-19 and do this and many other things. And, you know, in one case, in a nearby community, they're talking about raising taxes to pay the cost to take this project on, when here we sit and it's all but completed thanks to our great staff.
Which city?
I'd rather not say.
Oh, okay.
Um,
They should have thought ahead like we did.
right.
We have good leadership.
And this next bullet point is one of the ones I'm probably most proud of. Our property tax rate continues to go down. And we just refinanced, I think, council members, you saw my text that I sent out. We just refinanced our 2010 City Hall bonds. And throughout the rest of the amortization of those bonds, which are directly debt serviced by taxpayers, the taxpayers are going to save 1.85 million. And I think it's important to note that in 2016, the total millage rate in Oak Park was 36.93 mils. In 2020, it's 34.59, 2.34 mils less this year coming up than it was in 2016. And the millage rate we're proposing will be almost a half a mil less than the previous year itself. That's money that goes directly into the pockets of our taxpayers. And I think it's a great thing. Next. And then, as I mentioned, you know, when people ask, well, why do you invest so much in economic development? Again, this is why, because had we not done this, you know, we're seeing $370,000 of new money coming, property tax revenue coming right into the general fund as a direct consequence of the redevelopment of that site, which that site back in 2011 and 12 stood vacant, was basically not developed, even though they had done some prep work. Next slide, please. And it's also important to note, as you would recall from that previous chart, is Oak Park is expecting about a 4.13% increase in our overall taxable value for this next year. So despite, you know, the coronavirus outbreak, it appears that at least for now, things are going to remain pretty steady in taxable values. Now, remember, about 62% of the city's overall revenue comes from property taxes. So obviously this is a hugely important one for us, that we continue to see these upticks. And I think it's also important, this is another thing that City Council has agreed, which I think is a great thing. We were on target in the last year's budget projection to ask for a 7.74% water and sewer combined rate increase. And City Council, in a nod to our residents, especially given the circumstances, has agreed to lower that to 6.7, a full percentage less than we were planning on recommending. And also, I think it's worth noting that, and this was highly debated, obviously, in the budget sessions, but part of the plan in the solid waste fund is to provide one rolling hooded trash receptacle for every customer who does not have one. There's a lot of kinks in the system to work out, but we will do it. Next slide. Okay. Prosperity. So prosperity is the condition of being successful or thriving, especially as it relates to your economic well-being. I think that pretty well defines us. I mean, you know, we are definitely a community on the rise. All indicators show that. Progress. Progress is defined as forward or onward movement toward a destination. Well, we know where we're going. Let there be no doubt. We all know where we're going. We're going to great places. And perseverance. There it is. Perseverance is doing something despite difficulty or delay in achieving success. So coronavirus isn't going to set us back. The economic fallout to come isn't going to set us back. We are going to persevere because we've planned, and, you know, we're a different community than we were 10 years ago or 15 years ago. This community is moving in the right direction. And I have a brief video. It's an inspirational video, council members, that our videographer, Benny White, put together that I'm going to do my very best to share my screen and play for you. And I think this is going to this is its world debut here, correct? So
That's
bear
right.
with me. Gosh, if I get this right.
Yep.
Do you see that?
Mhm.
Yes.
There's no doubt this invisible enemy has rocked our world. It has changed our way of living. It has closed our schools and businesses. It's forced us apart from each other, and it's even taken our friends and family. Yes, there is fear. Yes, there is uncertainty. But there is also hope, and there is also strength. There is hope in the persistent mask making of neighbors and acquaintances we may never get to thank. Just like there is strength in the tired but dedicated hands of our healthcare heroes, working day and night to fight this virus. There is love in the sidewalk drawings of Oak Park residents, young and old, just as there is resolve in the eyes of our public safety officers, our postal carriers, and our grocery store workers, working so hard to keep our society moving the best way that it can right now. That's because we are strong, and not just strong, but Oak Park strong. When crisis hits, we don't sit down, we stand up. We help our most vulnerable, and we remind each other that there is more good in this world than bad, and that there is a light at the end of this tunnel. Because that's who we are, and that's what we do. We are Oak Park strong, and we will arise.
Ah, beautiful.
Okay, did everybody, did it come out okay?
That was great,
Yes.
Eric. Very nicely done.
Well, I have to say, Benny White did a magnificent job. Thank you so much, Benny, if you're on here, and all the staff that worked on that. But I understand that will go live now, and then we'll be showing it later on our channels.
I take back that thanks. Thank you, Benny White. That was awesome.
So council members, that concludes my budget presentation. I would be happy to answer questions that you may have.
There, Member Edgar, do you have a question? No?
I have a stupid question.
There's no
Not
stupid
stupid
question.
question,
Mayor
but-
Pro
Did
Tem.
my job.
The changes that we discussed during the budget sessions with some numbers not being included and they had to make changes on the final budget presentation, are those changes made?
Yes, they are. If I could, Madam Mayor, that's an excellent question. That's not a dumb question at all. It's an excellent question. And I would also say that all the changes that we discussed have been included, but I do think it's important that I denote to you guys that the second meeting in June or so, let's say, depending on the circumstances, is when we intend on coming back to you. And, obviously with a moving target the way it is in the current fiscal year, you saw my best guess as to what I think is going to happen, but we intend to come back to you that second meeting in June for more specifics in terms of what budget amendments we'll have to make in the current budget in preparation to go into the new budget. That there's no other way to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
not a question, just a comment. I think, given the circumstances, budgeting is hard enough under normal circumstances. And given the current state of things, I just want to again thank city manager and the rest of the city administration for all of your hard work on this and putting this together. And I do think it's important that the public understand that, because as city manager just said, because of the uncertainties we have moving forward, we will likely be doing some budget amendments, I'm assuming, throughout the next fiscal year. That is probably pretty likely at this point.
Correct.
Absolutely.
I think grace under pressure is something we all admire, and I think City Manager Tungate has shown this, leading his staff through all of these many issues that we've had recently. Was very impressive.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think, may I just say, I really want to thank the staff. You know, they make me look good, but the reality is they're wonderful. And on top of that, we have a wonderful group of elected officials here that, quite honestly, I'm honored and proud to work for.
We are all on the same page, going in the same direction, rowing together. And I think that's why we've been so successful. If there's no further question, we will I will gavel open the public hearing and turn it over to Director Crystal Van Vleck, who can call on any member of the public who would like to speak.
Give me 1 second. I think I need Benny to make me host again. Hi,
You got it, Crystal.
Oh, okay, there I am. Great. Okay, so anyone who has is joining us through Zoom and not over the phone, you should have the ability to raise your hand. If you don't see that, at the bottom of your screen, you can see manage participants or participants. If you click that, it'll create a screen on the right side. And there at the bottom, you can see raise hand. So I see one raised hand. If you have any problems using this, go ahead and use the chat feature. And then anyone who's joining us by phone right now, I only see one, we'll unmute you and then ask if you have any comments for this part of this is for the public hearing itself. So just a reminder, this is specifically a public hearing for the budget. So Mike Ryder, I'm going to unmute you right now if you have any comments on the budget.
Okay, I didn't realize it was for the budget. It was actually how to get a permit. So should I just wait until it's open for anything?
Yeah, go ahead, Mayor. I'm sorry.
Surely. If there are no comments on Zoom or by phone.
I'm sorry, Mike, we will have a public, there will be a chance at the very end for public comment, and then we'll let you talk then. And then I'm just going to ask the person who's joining, the one person that I see joining us via phone, I'm going to unmute you. If you do have any comments regarding the budget, go ahead and speak. If you don't have to say anything. We're just going to give you a second. All right. Okay, Mayor, I think that's it for the public hearing.
Thank you, Director Van Vleck. And I will then close the public hearing. We now need a resolution adopting the fiscal year 2021 budget and millage rates and acknowledging the multi-year budget, including projections for fiscal years 2021-22 and 2022-23. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded. Tim and Councilmember Edgar. Is there discussion on the budget? And I can't see everyone, so you might need to say something.
No.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I just wondered if, I know that water and sewer rates are always an issue in our community. And I'm just wondering if maybe Kevin could just explain a little bit about the increases that are coming. I know we kept them lower than expected, but.
Should we wait just one item until we get to the water and sewer rates, because we were told we need to do those separately. Do you mind waiting just one item?
No, not at all.
Okay, all right. So anything further about the budget? Clerk Norris, roll call vote, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Burns,
Yes.
Councilmember Edgar,
Yes.
Mayor McClellan,
Yes,
Councilmember Radner,
Yes.
and Councilmember Weiss.
Yes.
motion carried unanimously. And now we are on the water and sewer rates that Councilmember Edgar was referring to. Let's first get our motion and our second. Motion to adopt the fiscal year 2020 to 2021 water and sewer rates.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Weiss, second by Burns. Discussion or questions, Member Edgar?
Again, so given that water and sewer rates are always a point of contention in Oak Park, I'm just wondering, I think Kevin would probably be the person to speak about the rate increases that are coming and what they cover.
Assistant City Manager Kevin Yee?
City Manager, did you want me to?
Yeah, I feel free, but I know we have Jamin and Sandra are on, and Steve and Kevin Vandewall are on too for that very question. But if you wanted to chime in, feel free.
Sure, not a problem. So it's probably been about 2 or 3 years now. We had Plant Moran do a study on our water and sewer rates, and they gave recommended amounts to increase our water and sewer rates to meet both the capital improvement needs and the cost of just operations and wholesale water rates to cover our water and sewer system. And actually, I think year in and year out, we've pretty much reduced the rates that they had even recommended, this year included. And, you know, but at the same time, we do need to increase rates annually to meet both the cost of what we're paying for wholesale water and the cost of improving the system and maintaining the system. So every year, as you see in the capital improvement budget, which is passed out year in and year out, we spend a great deal of resources on just the capital improvements of an aged water and sewer system. And I think we do a great job with our system in maintaining it, but there's a cost to it. And, you know, some of the water system in the ground is nearly 100 years old. So, you know, we have to maintain that. We replace water mains every year. We repair sewers every year. And we, you know, clean and televise our sewer system. We do an extensive amount of repairs, and there's a cost of just running and maintaining. We have 3 pump stations. We have an elevated water tank. We have an in-ground water storage tank. And, you know, that's the cost of doing business, so to speak. And also, I'd like to note that we've done pretty extensive surveys of, and actually SACWA does surveys of the surrounding areas and the water and sewer rates, and we tend to fall right in the middle in our water and sewer rates. We're not higher than anyone in the region or lower than anyone. We fall right in the middle. So I feel pretty confident that we're doing it right and we're maintaining the system well. And you know, again, the cost reflects what we do and what we offer.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, City Manager Tungay.
I want to also, thank you, Kevin. I want to also just add in that, you know, obviously with the stormwater charge being separated out beginning July 1, which we have received confirmation that we will, in fact, as part of our settlement, need to do. There's going to be some education that's going to need to go on, believe it or not, between now and July 1, and how we're going to do this on Zoom and other is beyond my understanding. But part of that education is going to be, you know, how we arrive at the rates, where the money goes. As Kevin mentioned, you know, the whole premise for the Plant Moran study we did a couple years back was that prior to that, the justification for rate increases was we just passed on whatever rate increase was passed on to us. And this put a little bit more science to it. And anyway, so we're going to have to do more of this education for the public, especially now with the stormwater charge being separated out.
The Plant Moran study was 2015-16,
Yes.
and they found that just passing on the rates from the city was inadequate. We were not
Right.
prepared for something disastrous to happen to our water system, like what happened when a whole street collapsed with a house in another city that we know about. So much as we hate to see high water bills, it is the cost of doing business.
Can I just make a comment?
Yes.
I just wanted to reiterate once again that Plant Moran suggested that we increase the water bills, I believe 20 or 30%. And we as a council decided not to hit our residents with such a huge increase at one time. We chose to spread it out over the next couple of years. So I just want to say that that plan is coming to fruition. And this is, I believe, the second year of the increase, or either the third year of the increase.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Well, not to bring in too much, but this is now, I believe that you might be confusing the two, Council Mayor Pro Tem, but we're not recommending any increases in solid waste.
No, just in the water.
But as far as, as I mentioned in my presentation, we, City Council, during our work sessions, this is something we discussed heavily, and in a nod to our residents, lowered the proposed rate increase by a full % So hopefully, and no one wants to hear about a rate increase anyway, but hopefully when you take into all of our demands into consideration in terms of upkeep and everything else, that will be seen as a gesture of goodwill given the circumstances.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
And I know City Manager already alluded to this, that we're going to need to be doing a lot of education between now and July 1 because of the new way in which water rates are going to be calculated with the storm charge being separated. I do think that that's going to be important to note because depending on the resident or the business, their bill may be going up or down depending on how much impermeable surface they have. And so obviously that's going to be very important that we make sure that the public knows how to estimate what that cost is going to be.
Absolutely.
Anything further on the water and sewer rates? Ready for vote? This is to adopt fiscal year 2021 water and sewer rates. We have a motion and a second. Clerk Norris, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Edgar,
Yes.
Mayor McClellan,
Yes.
Councilmember Radnor,
Yes.
Councilmember Weiss,
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem Burns.
Yes.
Motion carried. Nobody's happy to see water rates go up, but it is it's what we are going to see regardless, all over the country, all over the state, certainly throughout the city. It will cost more to keep our aging infrastructure in one piece. And nobody's happy to see that. Item D is adoption of the fiscal year 2020 and 2021 fee schedule. Is there a motion to adopt this?
So moved.
That's Mayor Pro Tem Burns, and is there a second?
Second.
Is that Edgar?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Is there discussion or questions? City Manager Tungate, can you just review generally what fee schedule things were changed?
Sure. There really were not a lot of changes, council members. Actually, on page 3, we added some charges for technical and planning and public safety for animal surrender, dead animal pickup. But I wanted to just generally mention that, just as a reminder, we're one of the few places in terms of city governments who goes in and reviews its fee schedule on an annual basis. Most cities don't do this. One of the reasons that we do this is we want to make sure that we're recovering all of the costs that are associated with providing these services and programs. And again, we're a not-for-profit at the end of the day. We cannot charge an uptick to make profit off this stuff, but we are allowed to cover our costs, generally speaking. The other advantage to doing this every year is that we can make ourselves more competitive in terms of our pricing. And let me give you one example where that's extremely important. We have a 3-party agreement with the cities of Ferndale and Hazel Park to share recreation services. So we want to make sure that our costs to use our resources in recreation are competitive with the other communities at the very least. Oftentimes we'll have people coming from other communities wanting to use our resources, and they won't do it if it's $100 more to rent a space or than it is next door. So that's the other reason. City Clerk Norris, you are in charge of managing this year to year. Do you want to add anything additional beyond what I said?
Oh, I don't have anything to add to that. Thanks.
Okay, that's it, Madam Mayor.
Right. So the city cannot make money. It's not a profit center. It is only to recover our costs. There's no further discussion. Clerk Norris, would you do a roll call?
Mayor McClellan,
Yes.
Councilmember Radner,
Yes.
Councilmember Weiss,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Burns,
Yes.
Councilmember Edgar.
Yes.
Motion carried. There are no communications or special licenses listed. We're down to number 10, accounting reports. Approval for payment of invoices submitted by Garen Locale Miller PC for legal services in the total amount of $13,562.72. Councilmember Radner, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
You have to pay your attorneys.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. You tell them. Roll call then, please.
Councilmember Radner,
That's a yes.
Councilmember Weiss,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Burns,
Yes.
Councilmember Edgar,
Yes.
Mayor McClellan.
Yes, passed unanimously. That puts us onto the item 13, city attorney, and we have John Galuli reporting for us. Welcome.
Ebony Duff.
There he is.
Madam Mayor, I think John is actually speaking to 13B. I think Ebony is speaking to 13A though, correct?
That's correct. I would have let John give his report first if the mayor wanted to
Okay.
proceed.
Oh, no, that's fine. Yep. This is on Metro Act permit application.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council. You have a memo from myself and also from Technical and Planning. We received an application from a company doing business as Verizon Wireless for a Metro Act permit. I reviewed the permit. Tech and Planning has also reviewed it. Essentially, they're looking to install 6 4G antenna atop existing DTE poles within the city. Upon review of their application, there were a couple of issues they needed to address, which have been addressed since the date of that memorandum. This is going to be a 5-year permit for the installation of those antenna. They have an insurance permit that they're going to produce that insures the city of Oak Park. And then they're also going to revise the application itself because it had an incorrect city name. So they're going to do that and get it to us. And upon that submission, we would issue a new permit. So we're asking at this time for you to approve the proposed resolution that's included in your packet, approving the Metro Act permit. They will have to apply for a right-of-way permit with the city through the Tech and Planning Department if it is approved this evening.
Does the city get anything for this?
No, there's an application fee that, again, as you just explained during the fee schedule, it covers the cost for the administrative personnel to go out, do the inspections and monitor the paperwork filing, but we are not making any money off of this permit.
I'm just curious, how does the city benefit from?
Well, my understanding per their application, it is intended to boost their network and quality of services in the city of Oak Park. So those Verizon customers there, it's expected that their a broader network band will benefit those customers.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, Councilmember Edgar.
So do most cities get some sort of lease fee when they host these antenna? Or is it typical for just the administrative or installation fee to go to the city and it covers all costs?
Typical for these type of Metro Act permits, we are not able to charge a lease fee. Now, there are some city assets and we do actually have existing leases. The water tower, I believe, is one, and I believe one other in the city. But this, again, they're placing on DTE owned poles. So they actually have a lease in place with DTE to place on their utility. But again, because it's in the city right away, we have the ability to control the installation, ensure one, that we know what types of companies are operating in our right of way, and also to ensure that they are being careful during the installation and any removal as well.
Are they going to be relatively integrated with the environment, or are they going to stick out?
I'm going to defer to Director Barrett if he is there as to the aesthetics of how this actual antenna is going to look. I know they submitted plans. Rob, are you there? Can you speak to that?
I think he ran away.
Yes, I'm here. I just had to unmute myself. The aesthetics are going to be unnoticeable on that. They're just like small, couple foot features on top of DTE poles on Coolidge Highway. And as Ebony discussed, the main benefit we're going to receive is we're going to have increased coverage for Verizon within the city of Oak Park.
Okay, are we ready to vote?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
just a point of order. If they are going to be resubmitting their application with corrections, can we approve a resolution approving the application if they're going to be resubmitting the application?
No, they're not resubmitting the application. With the application, they submit a proposed permit, and in reviewing the permit, it didn't have the right name at the top. So it's just, you're approving the application, but the permit itself is going to be issued by the city, but they have the duty to prepare it. And so we've asked them to prepare appropriately. And again, once you pass this resolution, all of these documents are going to be submitted for filing with the state.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Anything further? Yes, Red? Or?
If I heard correctly, I believe there's going to be some sort of indemnification.
There is, with respect to we obtain insurance to indemnify us against, again, their work during the installation and removal if necessary process.
What if something happens? I don't know, something falls down. Are they going to indemnify us for that if we get sued?
I would argue that is covered in the insurance because that'd be their placed equipment in the facility in the right of way.
Yeah, we could still
But
cost
quite frankly, it's attached to a DTE pole, so we probably be in another, or I shouldn't say another, but an issue with our friends at DTE, which we've had great experience with.
Yeah, would be.
I think you were around for that history.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where are these poles? Where are they going to be placed? The antenna.
The poles are already in place. You're just adding something to the existing poles, correct?
That's correct. In my understanding, they're along Coolidge Highway primarily. Rob, are they all on Coolidge? There's 6 different locations. There's a map submitted, and I can get that to you if it was not submitted with our paperwork.
They are all on Coolidge Highway.
And we have the exact locations on the map.
We do have the exact location on the map. I can try to pull it up in my emails, but we did perform the review and they were all on Coolidge Highway.
Thank you.
Anything further? We can get a roll call then.
Madam Mayor, we need a motion.
I
please.
need a motion first. Resolution approving a Metro Act permit application submitted by Cellco Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless.
So moved.
That's
Second.
Weiss, and second by who?
Burns.
Burns, thank you. All right. Roll call?
Councilmember Weiss,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Burns,
Yes.
Councilmember Edgar,
Yes,
Mayor McClellan,
Yes,
and Councilmember Radner.
Yes.
motion carried.
Madam Mayor, can I give one more update before you turn to Attorney
Please.
Galuli? At our
Yes.
last meeting, there was a question about our ability to continue meeting remotely. And I just wanted to be sure that everyone was aware and received a copy of the governor's order. I believe it was issued the day after that meeting. We discussed it. She issued a new order. So we are authorized to meet by remote participation, and it's through June 30. So I believe the city manager is agreeing to continue meetings, boards and commissions as well through June 30 at this time.
Excellent.
Okay. Thank you. Then we have City Attorney
Thank
John
you.
Galuli.
Thank you very much. That was wonderful. John Galuli, update on our flood litigation. Oh, unmute yourself. There you go.
Thank you, Mayor McClellan. Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members, City Manager Tungate, members of the administration. I wanted to give each of you and the citizens of Oak Park this evening a brief update as it pertains not only to water rates, but the quality of life that the City of Oak Park residents deserve, will continue to receive, and how Oak Park's been leading the way in litigation with which many other communities are confronted right now. This arises, of course, out of the, August 2014 catastrophic flooding event that caused and wreaked havoc across southeastern Michigan, where 6 inches of rain fell within a 1-hour period. People can probably remember the images of not far from the city of Oak Park of cars floating down various roadways, and I-75 having 25 feet of water literally in its depths at the intersection of I-75 and 696. Since then, we've been battling a class action lawsuit. Class action lawsuit is brought in this case and in our other case by residents of the city of Oak Park against the city. As I've said in earlier presentations, and I'll say it again, I do not believe that people's participation in class action lawsuits are a good idea. They're essentially suing themselves. And the only ones, quite frankly, who make any money in class action lawsuits are the attorneys, and specifically the plaintiff attorneys. So here, the city of Oak Park, in our case, has taken the most advanced steps. We moved to dismiss this case earlier than anyone else. We've spent less money defending this case than anyone else, quite frankly. While some communities are paying $10,000 a month in legal fees for this, ours maybe 1,000, if that. But I come to you because we've been under pressure to settle the August 2014 flooding event from some time. City Manager Tungate, Assistant City Manager Yee, and I, and others participated in 2-3 full days of facilitation with a retired judge. At that time, we were told that it would take upwards of $30 million to settle this case, which the plaintiffs are bringing against Oak Park and many other communities. Royal Oak, Huntington Woods, Berkeley, the Coon Drain Facility in Oak Park, and several other cities around us. We stood up. We told them that we didn't believe that a settlement of that would be in the best interest of the residents of the city of Oak Park. And we suggested that a downward departure from that number was likely and needed to happen before we could continue to talk settlement, quite frankly. Oakland County, unfortunately, their attorneys believe that this case could settle for, would only settle for something between $25 and $30 million. At some point recently, the judge ordered us back to the table and asked us to come up with a comprehensive plan for all the communities to try to settle this case without having to engage in litigation for several additional years. A proposal was made, and Oak Park, keep in mind, had the second highest number of claimants in that 2014 rain event. Over 4,000 residents were affected. More than that, 4,000 claims were submitted, but Royal Oak leads the way. It was proposed not by us, but in terms of $1 payment per claimant over all the cities, that Oak Park's proposed contribution or something, that we contribute well over $1 million to try to settle the case. There were decisions and conferences held, the results of which I'm not going to speak because some of them are barred by privilege and the like, but I'd like to tell you, Madam Mayor and council people, and especially the residents of the city of Oak Park, that we took the liberty in light of the pandemic, in light of the budget situations that the city of Oak Park and municipalities all over the state and country are confronted with. We just passed the budget. I won't call it with fuzzy math, but you know that budget amendments, as you mentioned, are going to be necessary. State revenue sharing is down. It's hard for me, and I'm not willing to come to you and ask you for $1 million to settle this case that's defensible. I'm not willing to do that. I put it in letters to all the communities, quite frankly, with copy to Manager Tungate and Mr. Yee. And we took the liberty of telling all the communities, please get it out of your head that given the pandemic, given the change in economics amongst municipalities and the uncertain futures, I am not going to come before your body and ask for over $1 million to settle this basement flooding case. Nobody likes a flooded basement. My mother-in-law's in Oak Park, and I spent days there under, in the basement cleaning things up as well. It's horrible. But we're suing ourselves, quite frankly. And if we don't want higher rates, we have to be very, very careful about what we ask for. Because when this case settles and Oakland County contributes money to try to settle this case in terms of the Coon Drain District, where all our sewage goes for treatment, you know how Oakland County is going to be reimbursed by it. The rates are going to be raised to all the affected communities, including Oak Park. So what we did, we took the liberty of reaching out to all the communities and saying, listen, and I see Manager Tungate smiling to my right, out of my right eye, because we told him I'm not coming to those elected officials and asking for $1 million. We're not recommending that the case be settled for more than that. We need to go back to the drawing board and come up with another plan. We were met by some opposition at first, by some municipal leaders saying, whoa, you're going to frustrate our ability to settle the case. No, we've got to get it done, and I've got to come to you with a proposed settlement. If it's going to settle, it's going to be far less than $1 million, far less. Because it's not worth it for a city resident of Oak Park to get a check of $100 or so, and then for plaintiff's attorneys to make several $1 million on the back end of it, given with which we're all confronted. So we continue to be, I believe, the most aggressive city in trying to resolve our differences, in trying to do what's best for our citizens, while at the same time looking to protect the whole as well. We'll come back before you. I appreciate the leadership of Assistant City Manager Yee, of City Manager Tungate. We've really taken a bull by the horns in this case. We're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to insist that we get the best degree ever negotiated in one of these types of cases. And I won't come back to you until that time. We continue to work hard. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. City Manager, you have something to add?
You're on mute, City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to compliment City Attorney Gillooly for his masterful legal maneuvering in this situation. This is a very difficult case, and I'm really, as weird as it might be to say, because we know that these firms are becoming predatory to cities, in my view, as John said. As weird as it is to say, as far as where the case is now, I think it's pretty encouraging, and it's been due in large part to his masterful legal maneuvering. So thank you.
I
Impressive.
have a question.
Yes.
Who's the judge and who's the mediator?
Councilmember Radner, the judge is the Honorable Phyllis McMillan of the Oakland County Circuit Court. The mediator was retired Judge Dan Ryan.
Okay. Thank you.
You're very welcome, sir.
Any questions or comments?
I appreciate your time, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much, members of council. Mr. Tungay.
We thank you for all the work you're doing. With everything that's hitting the cities, these kinds of lawsuits are unconscionable. They are without merit, and benefit attorneys and don't benefit people. And it's the legislature ought to be able to do something. But thank you. City Manager Eric Tungate, it is your section.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. I would like to ask Assistant City Manager Kevin Yee to speak in just a moment. But council members, 14A, I had asked Kevin to join me in presenting just a brief update on where we are with the 696 Sound Wall project, because you may have noticed, I think enough of you have been out and about to see that the sound wall along the service drive is all torn up and being improved. So Kevin, with that, take it away.
Thank you. We have a drawing of the area to show an aerial photo of the area that we're going to show here. This project is an MDOT project. It was taken on by the state after many, many, many years of requesting. And I think between myself, the city manager, the mayor, and Rob Barrett, Director Barrett, and Deputy Director DeCosta, we've all at some point asked about improving this wall. Bricks are falling down, the tops were crumbling. It was in terrible condition. So finally they're doing it. We're very pleased with that. And this is the area that they're doing. So if you can look on this drawing here, Coolidge Highway runs right in the middle of the drawing, north and south, straight up and down. And then 696 goes across the screen from left to right. You can see the sections are broken down into sections. I will say wall section number 5 has been removed from the project. The project came in very much so over budget. So that is actually the section in Huntington Woods, unfortunately for them. Oak Park sections are all getting done. It includes the area immediately east and west of Coolidge Highway, and then one section on either side of the turnaround to the east or west of Coolidge Highway, except for that one section in the southeast corner there. And this wall section 5 again that I had mentioned. But the project is quite extensive. If you've seen what they're doing so far, they're really tearing that wall apart and doing a very good job of repairing it. The project is scheduled to go basically through the summer, through August. But like I had mentioned, and they're moving along fairly well. They've done a large section of 1 and 2 has been mostly done, it appears, and then they already have removed the bricks and are working on the section in wall 3 there, wall section 3. So they are moving along fairly well, and I think it's going to be a huge improvement for us, especially with us just redoing that bridge. This area of town will start looking really nice.
And I know that at least 9 years that I know of, we've been asking for this to be done, and Assistant City Manager Yee has been asking, and then we've been talking to the people at MDOT and asking, and finally I asked our state rep, Robert Wittenberg, and our state senator, Jeremy Moss, that it's horrible, it looks terrible, it is not safe, and we would like something done. And it could be a coincidence, but this is the year that it got done. And City manager, can you just explain, they took the bricks off and then pulled some of the concrete off? What exactly is going on under there?
Yeah, Assistant City Manager Yee, I think, go ahead and take that one.
Okay, sorry, I thought that's who you're calling on me. Yes, so it looks, so what they're doing is they're taking them, they're doing some testing on the concrete as they remove the bricks, and they're removing anything that's sections that are compromised. So any of the concrete that's bad, they're cutting it out and they're replacing it. They're putting in steel and forming it up and pouring it all back. So I think they're doing some testing, some non-destructive testing to see if the concrete's compromised, and where it is, they're cutting those sections out and replacing the concrete.
That's great. It's not just a patch, it's a real cure.
It's quite extensive. They're doing it's actually, I'm very pleased with what I've seen out of the work that they're doing.
Because I've seen in the past that they've just kind of done some patching of cracks in previous years. And this is much better than that. I can't tell you how thrilled. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Okay, 14B, Director Crawford.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, City Manager. Before you is a contract extension with Riemann, our current auditors. Last year, we brought before you a contract for 1920 fiscal year with the extension of, with the city's option of extending to the outlying 3 fiscal years. And so when we were going through the audit process, there's a lot of different GASB, which are governmental accounting standard pronouncements that have been coming out. And so most auditors have this part in their package, but I found out that our auditors did not. And so I asked them to update the current contract for fiscal year 2019-20 to do our audit and update the pricing, and 3 years out for the extension of the other fiscal years if we would so desire to do that. I noted it was noted last year that we have been with them for a while, but due to COVID, it was not able, we were not able in the finance department at this time to go out and get a bid, but that is the intent, to go out towards the end of the year to submit proposals to you, to get new audit bids, just to, freshen it up a little bit with the auditors. Again, the auditors are basically here for you. They're your double check that we are doing what we're supposed to do in the finance department. And so I just ask that if you would approve their proposal for the fiscal year of 1920. And then if we need be, depending on how long COVID goes out for, with leaving the fiscal years 21 and 22 as an optional.
Okay, so you need a motion for this, correct?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we extend the contract for Riemann as our auditor for fiscal year 2020 and possibly there later. So we have a motion and a second. How long has Riemann done this for us? How many years have they done this?
Madam Mayor, we retained them in 2013 or 14. One thing I wanted to mention, the policy does ask, I believe it's Director Crawford, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it does say that is it 3 or 5 years per 3, that City Council will need to change our auditors. And I think what we've determined is that is at the discretion of City Council. So, we've got a pretty good relationship. They know where the books are and where the bodies are buried. So in my opinion, it's a good relationship to continue, especially in light of what Director Crawford mentioned in terms of the COVID-19 thing going on.
Absolutely, absolutely. Any discussion or questions? Roll call then, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Burns.
Yes.
Councilmember Edgar.
Yes.
Mayor McClellan.
Yes.
Councilmember Radner.
Yes.
And Councilmember Weiss.
Yes.
Motion carried.
14C, Director Maroney, are you, please take this one. And D, please.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor, Council, and City Manager Tungate. The first agenda item I have is a facade grant approval for 15421 9 Mile Road. This is a site that has been vacant for a little bit of time, and new owners have just acquired it, and they're going to do a full facelift of the building. In my request, I asked that they did provide a second bid on this, and they have submitted that. The second bid came in at $70,000, so obviously they're choosing the lower bid at $20,000. And we ask that you approve the facade grant in the total amount of $2,500.
Is there a motion to approve this grant?
So moved.
Mayor Pro Tem, and is there a second?
Second.
Second. Councilmember Weiss, discussion. I think the better we can get our businesses looking, the better for all of us. Spruce up the city.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Question. Kim, which building is this? Which facade is, you said it's been vacant. Where is it located exactly?
It's an old dentist office on 9 Mile Road near Greenfield on the south side.
Okay, I think I know which one that is. Thank you. That's good news.
Yeah.
They also have a site plan that was submitted a week ago for a daycare to go in there that we'll be reviewing at the next planning commission.
Ready to vote.
Councilmember Edgar,
Yes.
Mayor McClellan,
Yes.
Councilmember Radner,
Yes.
Councilmember Weiss,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Burns.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, and then 14D, before I turn it over to Director Maroney, I want to say this, that, there are only so many ways that a city in our situation can assist its business community during these times. And I just want to thank Director Maroney for putting so much thought and hard work into our business assistance response, going forward, because we all know coronavirus is the current crisis, and the economic fallout is going to be the next crisis we're going to be dealing with. So with that, Director Maroney, 14D, please.
Thank you, Eric. I'm going to share my screen for a moment. I put together a brief presentation on the items that are included in the resolution. Some of the things we're proposing that council give us permission to do is loosen our signage restrictions. We are going to allow, and we have been allowing at least restaurants, but we want to expand that to retailers as well, to allow them a 32 square foot sign temporarily. And they must comply with all the zoning ordinance and property maintenance provisions, and to allow those signs until October 1st, 2020. At that time, if we think we need to extend it, we will. The whole idea behind this is that we aren't going to charge them any fees, there's no permits, and it allows them to advertise what services they have in place and hopefully help them to recover a little quicker. The other item is outdoor dining. Many of the restaurants, when they reopen, if you saw the executive order today, they're reopening the UP and one region of Northern Michigan. They're allowing only 50% capacity for restaurants. When restaurants are created, they assume 100% capacity to make their numbers work. So we want to try and help them as much as possible. And we're trying to waive the outdoor dining permit fees for them until October 31st, 2020. We need your approval to waive that fee. They will simply have to submit an application to the planning department, and we will allow them to put their outdoor dining onto city sidewalks as well as into parking areas. They will not need as much parking based on the 50% requirement if that's what's decided moving forward. The other item that we decided to do was allow sidewalk sales. Right now, we only allow one per year for a business. I do need to come back to City Council and have an ordinance amended so that we can allow them to do more of them. This will help to increase the visibility and the store capacity. We plan to do it that it's only a certain area of the city on a given day that they would be allowed to do these sidewalk sales. We don't want it to be an everyday occurrence, something that's unique and draws more attention to them. We've also asked City Council in this resolution to reallocate some funding that was put into the budget for the upcoming year. One of those is through the Corridor Improvement Authority, repurposing $15,000 that we will give in grants. It has to be to businesses within the Corridor Improvement Authority district. Business grants, we're reallocating monies that we had in an EDC fund balance. That entity is no longer in place, so we can reutilize those funds for grants for any business within the city of Oak Park. And we also started a patronicity campaign working with the MEDC and Main Street Oakland County. For every dollar that we raise, up to $4,000, Main Street Oakland County will match that. So we're hoping to raise $10,000 within the city of Oak Park to grant to our businesses. All these grants are up on our website for businesses to apply now. Business license late fees. Business license fees are due for the year 2020. They were due back in December. However, some businesses have not paid those fees as of yet. Typically, we have late fees applied to those, and we have decided to waive those late fees that would normally be applied only for the 2020 calendar year business license. Advertising within our Oak Park magazine, we have decided to reduce the rates by 50% for all businesses until the spring of 2021 so that they can help promote their businesses. PPE is something that all local businesses are going to need to reopen, and many of them are having a hard time securing the quantities they need. Many places that are selling them at reasonable costs have minimum buys of 500. That is not feasible for many small businesses. So we're working with Oakland County on a few programs as well as our District 12 region to secure some of those items of PPE, either to gift those to the businesses and or sell them at cost. And we're also going to work on creating a buy local campaign to promote all of our licensed businesses in Oak Park. I've done that in one of my previous communities, and a little graphic is on this presentation. And last, we have farmers market, hopefully this year. Every indication is that those will be able to open. And if so, we have talked to our recreation department, and they have agreed to allow free of charge for us to select one local retail establishment and one local restaurant within the city to apply to be part of the farmers market each week. They will have to follow all state of Michigan and health department orders, but this will give them an opportunity to get in front of possibly some new customers and promote their business.
Okay,
That is.
And those are the items in the resolution. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I'm just so impressed with all the ideas that you came up with to promote the businesses. When I was looking at what is safe to do, what is high risk, what is medium risk, what is low risk, outdoor dining is as low risk as taking a walk in the park. So outdoor dining is not only a good way for businesses to expand their space, but it's a great safe way to go out to eat. So
absolutely. I'd also like to add that part of the grants we're offering will allow them to purchase what they need to create the outdoor dining as well.
Fabulous. City Manager Tungate.
Madam Mayor, I just wanted to add something real quick. I know, I don't know if a lot of council members know this or not, but Director Maroney is actually the president of the MEDA organization, which is the Michigan Economic Developers Association, which is a statewide organization. So I was kind of half joking with her as we were going through this list of things and these great ideas that she came up with. But you know, she's able to get a lot of these ideas from best practices going on across the state. So I feel like we've got a real coup and a real strategic advantage with her at the helm, and I appreciate it very much.
Amen. I noticed Rachel Lutz has a small business in Detroit, and she used Facebook Live to say, you know, here's this dress and here's this sweater that goes with it, and you can bid. And she had the best sale day that she's had in her history. And so that might be another idea to promote.
Yeah, we've encouraged all of our businesses to get very creative in how they're marketing to their customers now. And if they need support in creating websites or social media pages, we're there to assist them.
Any comments or questions?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Just quick comment, amazing job, as everyone has said. I think these ideas are brilliant and I hope that they will help our local businesses thrive. I do have a quick question though. Looking at the resolution, the second to last whereas just says the MEDC Patronicity Grant Program. Is there supposed to be a little bit more there, or do you want to speak to that a little bit?
There was a revised version sent to Ed Norris, so I'll make sure that you get the final version. Yes.
Okay.
It was more expanded.
All right, thank you.
So we need a resolution in support of the COVID-19 Fabulous Business Assistance Package.
So moved.
Who was that?
So moved. Okay, I had to unmute myself.
There you go. And is there a second?
Second.
Second. Redner. I'm delighted that we're doing so much to save our businesses. And I just, I hope everyone will chip into the GoFundMe fundraiser. These are the businesses who have been with us through every event we've held since I've been mayor. They've been donating free food, they've been donating money, they've been local businesses helping us, and they need our help now. And now is the time, if you are able to, please chip in a little bit. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried, and
Yeah, Kim.
help us out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, council members, 14 E and F, I'm going to have our Human Resources Director, Vicki Brooks, join me. There are several contract extensions in addition to all the other things we've been working on. We've also negotiated one-year contract extensions with all of our bargaining units. And we also have memorandums of understanding as well to discuss. Director Brooks, take it away.
Hey, I'm sorry, Eric, you said E and F. I'm looking at A and B.
E and F.
E and F. Is that what I said? No? Did I say A and B?
No, I said this was on the screen, A and B. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. 14 E and F is what I meant to say.
Okay.
Director Brooks.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The city has a relationship with 4 separate unions. Those agreements all expire on June 30th, 2020. The city manager, along with the labor attorney and other city staff, have negotiated one-year extensions of those contracts in light of the financial uncertainties due to COVID-19. So we're asking the council to approve those 4 extensions. In addition to that, one of the things that we have first responders, and of course, they're doing a fantastic job. And of course, during the pandemic, they have been coming to work into the office on a regular basis, while many of our employees have been allowed to work from home. So we looked at some of the other surrounding cities and how they were incentivizing their employees or giving thank yous to their first responders. And in light of that, we also came up with 2 memorandum of understandings that gives those employees who have been coming in the office, police officers, 2 weeks of additional, 60 hours of additional vacation time to be taken once the pandemic is over. So we're asking the council to approve those 2 memorandum of understandings as well.
Yeah, thank you so very much for doing that, and thanks to the unions for agreeing. As I understand it, each of these has to be a separate vote. Is that correct? So that's going to be 6 votes. The first 4 will be for the contract extension, and the next 2 will be for the memo of understanding about the extra 2 weeks vacation time. Are there questions before we start voting? Okay, we need a motion to approve the collective bargaining agreement 1-year extension for police officers labor council.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem and Weiss. A discussion? A roll call vote, please.
Mayor McClellan,
Yes.
Councilmember Radner,
Yes.
Councilmember Weiss,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Burns,
Yes.
and Councilmember Edgar.
Yes.
Motion carried. Second one is the same, the 1-year extension of the collective bargaining agreement for Police Officers Association of Michigan, POAM. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Burns and Weiss. Any questions? Discussion? Roll call?
Councilmember Radner,
Yes.
Councilmember Weiss,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Burns,
Yes.
Councilmember Edgar,
Yes.
and Mayor McClellan.
Yes, motion carried. Number 3, the same collective bargaining agreement 1-year extension for Dispatchers Association, POAM.
So moved.
Burns, and second.
Second.
Weiss. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Weiss,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Burns,
Yes.
Councilmember Edgar,
Yes.
Mayor McClellan,
Yes,
Councilmember Radner.
Yes.
motion carried. Finally, in this group of 4, collective bargaining agreement 1-year extension for technical and professional office workers of Michigan, TPOAM. Need a motion?
So moved.
Burns and
Second.
Weiss. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Burns,
Yes.
Councilmember Edgar,
Yes.
Mayor McClellan,
Yes,
Councilmember Radner,
Yeah.
Councilmember Weiss.
Yes.
okay, motion carried. The last 2 are memorandum of understanding giving the police officers who are meeting face to face with the public and the people they arrest, kind of a hazardous duty pay benefit for going through this very difficult time. First, we have Police Officers Labor Council, POLC. Is there a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding?
So moved.
Burns, and who's second?
Second.
Weiss. Discussion? Roll call?
I have a question.
Yes,
How much is hazard pay?
say it again.
How much is hazard pay?
City Manager Tungate, what does this add up to?
Well, this is 60 hours in their time banks, but they do have a separate existing contractual hazard pay provision. And Director Brooks, I'm not sure if you know off the top of your head, but
It's $395 a year.
But Madam Mayor, may I just make a couple of quick comments
Yes,
about these? I should have said this at the outset, but I wanted to just let the members of council know that, you know, there are 2 really big takeaways for all of this, in my opinion, the extensions and the MOUs. One is all bargaining units, as you've noted, are in agreement on what everybody's going to get to agree to extend it. So we have across the board consistency on that. Number 2, while we thought we would have had to probably provide for a pay raise, which, you know, has a cumulative effect on the budget in terms of all the time banks, all the rest of the fringes, We've avoided that cumulative effect by doing the signing bonus. So I'm encouraged by that. But as was said, you know, as regarding the MOUs, I mean, these 60 hours are going to be non-compensatory, and we're hoping don't result in more than 2 off at any time, which is in their current contract.
Okay. Just wanted to know what the numbers were, that's all.
It's having a job that you can do at home on your computer by Zoom is a gift. And these are some of the people who don't have that gift coming. Where are we? Are we on a roll call?
We're ready to vote.
Ready to vote. Roll call.
Councilmember Edgar,
Yes.
Mayor McClellan,
Yes.
Councilmember Radner,
Yes.
Councilmember Weiss,
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem Burns.
Yes.
Motion carried. Finally, Police Officers Association of Michigan, POAM, the Memorandum of Understanding. Motion to accept this.
So moved.
Weiss,
Second.
and
Second.
at least third. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mayor McClellan,
Yes.
Councilmember Radner,
Yes.
Councilmember Weiss,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Burns,
Yes.
and Councilmember Edgar.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously. We are lucky to have these guys and women working for us. I don't know if you know, but if your child has a birthday party and they are not out doing something and they have a few minutes, they will drive the fire truck by your house, the police car with the sirens and the lights. If he's available, Sparky the dog will come and wave at your kid. During a time like this, in addition to facing the dangers, they are providing the community with a light in the darkness. Kind of neat. City Manager Tungate, back to you.
Did we get through that last vote? Just want to make. Okay, and I just want to thank Director Brooks again for the hard work. As many of you know, this is the coronavirus outbreak in terms of how an employer like we are to almost 200 people reacts is mostly an HR situation, and Director Brooks has done a great job shepherding us through this, and especially with these contracts. So thank you very much. The next item is 14G, and I'm going to take this one. I received a request about, I guess it was probably around 2 weeks ago, to waive the 30-day request requirement to fly the pride flag at City Hall. Council members, I'll note that this is the exact same group who requested this last year, and you at that time accepted my recommendation for a policy. And the only reason I've put it on the agenda is because it disrupted the policy because they didn't have at least 30 days notice. But I'd be happy to ask questions.
Seems like with COVID and all of this, this might be a year to cut them a little slack. This is, we need a motion to waive the 30-day request requirement to fly the pride flag at City Hall.
So moved.
So that's Weiss, and is there a second?
Second.
Edgar? Discussion?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say that I do agree with what you just said. I think with COVID going on and everything else, the request coming in a few days late is no reason to deny it. Additionally, I think there may have been some confusion. Per Mike, I was also in conversation with the person requesting it, and I don't think that they fully understood the 30-day requirement, just that it had to be submitted in advance. And so that was cleared up, but it was after the 30-day cutoff. Given everything that's been going on, I think it's completely reasonable to excuse that for this year.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay, one nay, motion carried. 4-1.
Okay, council members, I wanted to just give a very brief coronavirus update. As of 5 p.m. yesterday, there was 518 total confirmed cases in our community with 54 deaths. The last time that I gave you this update was at our last council meeting, and at that time we had 42 deaths. So in 2 weeks, our rate, you can see, while still not good, because anybody dying is not good, but our rate is beginning to slow down. I wanted to remind everyone there are the 2 testing sites, one on Greenfield that Oakland County is hosting, and then the one at the state fairgrounds. And I know there's a lot of other private entities doing COVID testing out there too. So hopefully it's going to get to a point where if you want to be tested, if you're not a first responder or essential worker, or you're not showing symptoms, if you want to be tested, you can be tested. I think that is going to be the key to the whole thing. I also wanted to, are there any questions about the coronavirus response before we get into the actual preparedness and response plan, by the way? Okay. I'm going to move on then to the 14I Oak Park COVID-19 preparedness and response plan. I'm actually going to turn it over to Director Van Vleck, who spearheaded this effort. And all of you should have received a copy of this. A lot of thought and hard work has gone into this. Council members Edgar and Weiss have both been participating on our recovery team meetings. And during those meetings, we've been developing our strategy for our customized strategy for how we're going to deal with the coronavirus outbreak, both from an employee perspective, and then of course with the general public. And I think Director Van Vleck has a PowerPoint she's going to do.
Yes, so I'm going to share my screen right now. Bear with me for a second. Okay. All right, so as City Manager Tungate, sorry about that. As City Manager Tungate mentioned, most of you know that we have been actively working on the city's COVID-19 preparedness and response plan. Tonight, we're presenting that plan to you. This presentation is intended to just summarize what you'll find in the plan, but we do encourage you to review it in its entirety. Please keep in mind that it's a living, working document. So as the situation unfolds and we receive further guidance, as I believe we did today, from the county, state, and federal government, the plan will be amended as we go. So we shared it with you, with all of council members as a link, and that link will always take you to the most updated plan. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. The first thing I want to mention is that the work of our recovery team. So we have been meeting for months now to establish and coordinate the city's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. We've discussed internally how we'll handle this. We've created policies and procedures within the organization to ensure safety and continuity of operations. And then also externally, the team has developed recommendations for City Council regarding delivery of services. Several of you council members are on that recovery team, so you're well aware of that. It's important to note that our goal throughout this entire process has been first and foremost to prioritize the health and safety of both our staff and residents while we try to continue to provide the same high-level essential services that our residents expect and deserve. The city's preparedness and response plan is the direct result of the recovery team's planning. It's important to note that this is a living document, as I said already, but I'll say it again. It'll continue to evolve as the situation unfolds and as we receive further guidance and directives from the county, state, and federal government. A quick summary of the plan's documents, of the plan's document includes important information from the state and federal government concerning the COVID-19 pandemic. This includes, but is not limited to, CDC guidelines on social distancing, enhanced hygiene and personal protection equipment. It also includes information for staff on the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. The act includes, among many things, the emergency paid sick leave and also expanded family and medical leave. The meat of the plan it includes 3 phases. So we've been in phase 1 now since the beginning, and phase 1 will last throughout the duration of the state's stay home, stay safe order. That's currently May 28th. Phase 2 will begin the first work week after that. So once that order is lifted, that's a Thursday. We are saying that phase 2 begins Monday, June 1. And I'll go into depth a little bit more on the phases in a second. Phase 3 would be that second week after the state's stay home, stay safe order is lifted. Right now, and lasting until further notice. Right now, that would begin June 28th. So these dates are subject to change if the governor extended the state's stay home, stay safe order. So it's important to note that phase 1 is throughout the duration. Phase 2 is the first week after. Phase 3 is the second week after. So phase 1. During phase 1, city buildings, of which is again currently up until May 28th, city buildings have been closed to the public except for public safety. So we continue to provide essential services. All departments are available via phone or email. We're asking residents to utilize online payment options and drop boxes outside of city facilities, while we're also waiving all online transaction fees. Visitors are only allowed if absolutely necessary and by appointment only. And if they are in the buildings, they must wear PPE and complete an emergency pandemic questionnaire. All city events and activities are canceled or postponed until otherwise ordered by city council. Boards and commissions are encouraged to meet virtually or postpone meetings. And for employees, right now and throughout this phase, all employees whose job duties reasonably allow them to have been and will continue to work remotely. So for those employees who are working in city facilities, we've implemented policies and procedures to increase safety. Phase 2, again, this is the first week after, the first work week after the stay home, stay safe order is lifted. All of the three beginning bullet points are all the same as phase 1. The basis of phase 2 is the safe transition of employees back into the workplace while the building is still closed to the public. So the point of this is to bring employees in while we're still closed so that we can guarantee safe procedures before we allow the public in. So employees will be brought back into the workplace on a staggered schedule. And during that week, all employees will undergo training on the city's enhanced safety measures to ensure the safety of employees and the public when we open the next week. So that leads us to phase 3. Phase 3 is largely dependent on how COVID-19 evolves and also how the state and federal government respond to that. We anticipate that when the state's stay home, stay safe order is lifted, that the governor will probably implement directives dictating how businesses and organizations are to reopen to the public, and also further safety precautions that must be taken. So we'll amend phase 3 as this information is revealed to us. For right now, phase 3 is all city buildings open to the public, but we will be taking safety precautions, or we will be putting safety precautions in place to protect the health of staff and residents. Right now, as you know, seasonal events are still canceled through August 1. City boards and commissions are still encouraged to meet virtually until further notice. And then for employees, all employees will perform in-person work activities unless otherwise designated. So that means that everybody will be returning to work unless they're otherwise designated to work from home. And then enhanced safety measures will take place until further notice. The city will continue to follow all recommendations and guidelines provided by the Centers for Disease Control and the state and county health departments, along with best practices. So this concludes the summary of the city's COVID-19 preparedness and response plan. As I said, this is a summary, so we encourage you to read through the document. The plan has been shared and discussed internally with staff already via a staff town hall that city manager held last Friday. The plan was also shared with city council via the council packet, as well as, like I said, a link that will always take you to the most updated version. And while this is a document that's primary use is internal, the plan will also be placed on our website for the public. And with that, I'll take any questions that you may have.
The plan lists specifically for each department what specific things are going to happen in that department as far as glass walls and things, all the things specific to that particular department are listed in detail.
Correct, yeah. Each department director submitted a plan to us to include in the plan. So that's attached as an appendix.
Any questions or comments?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, it was, first, before you start, it was a huge amount of work. And I'd like to thank the city council members who participated with the staff and Director Van Vleck for putting that together so that everybody feels comfortable coming into work. Yes, and then back to Councilmember Weiss.
I just want to acknowledge the effort of city manager and the rest of the team on this. I do think that phase 2 is critically important. People sitting at home may be wondering, well, why does the city need a week to figure out how to do this? But just remember, we've been shut down like everybody else for a while. We want to make sure that not only our employees are safe, but also that the public is safe. And so we need time to make sure that procedures are set in motion, training is done so that both our city employees and the public residents coming in are as safe as they can possibly be. So I think that was a wise choice. And just to echo what Director Van Vleck said, we are going to be continuing to waive those online fees until phase 2 is complete. So people won't still be able to pay by the Dropbox and online.
Just a question, if I come into City Hall and I forgot my mask, are there going to be masks available?
Madam Mayor, I'm going to take that one. It's a great question. We're in the process of developing a proper answer to that. I would say at this juncture, it's looking more and more like masks will be required when the public is allowed to enter the buildings beginning on June 8th. And, you know, we are more than likely going to need to provide masks at the entrance to those locations. I'll also note that the recovery team has been working on entrance locations and exit locations so as to make them not the same location. So going forward, when the public enters City Hall, for example, they will enter into the main doors and they will exit the west doors of City Hall so that they're not, you know, walking into people as it'll be a one-way traffic throughout. But again, in those entrance locations to these facilities, we'll need to provide those supplies more than likely.
And traffic arrows.
Yes, and that's part of it.
Absolutely. That have never done that before and are going to head back to the main door.
We're gonna have to have traffic arrows?
Yes.
In City Hall, right.
Well, we not only that, but we'll need standing locations. So if there becomes a line or, you know, whatever, that people know where to position. You've probably seen this at retailers if you've been to any of them. I know I've seen them at home improvement stores and things where they have this.
That was an enormous job. Doing something that we've never done. So good on us for figuring it out and keeping the residents safe and the workers safe. We're in new territory. This wasn't in the How to Be a City Manager book.
No, it wasn't, Madam Mayor. And I'll just add this, that I as you know, I come into the office every day and it's getting kind of lonely in this bunker that I'm existing in. But I walked into council chambers the other day and I thought, wow, remember when we used to meet in person? And it's just, it's a far, I mean, 2 months ago, we were in a different environment altogether. So hopefully 2 months from now, the condition will have improved dramatically and we can try to get back to normal.
I do have a question. Are we continuing to bus our seniors to medical appointments and grocery shopping?
Yes.
We are. And so what things are happening on the bus that didn't happen before?
Well, that's part of that has to be figured out too. But, you know, touchless thermometers and temperature checks are going to probably have to be instituted. And then of course, the spacing requirements are going to have to be met when more than one individual is on the bus. But it is our intent to continue to bus seniors to appointments and things.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
This is not related to this document, but it is related to COVID. Just a COVID decision we made last meeting. Bringing it up because Mayor wanted me to remind her. There have been several complaints about houses with unmowed lawns, and I know that at the last council meeting, we approved extending a lot, like giving people basically a grace period. Can you remind us, city manager, when that grace period expires and the procedures that people should be following right now for lawn maintenance?
Well, absolutely. The grace period is going to expire when the lockdown order expires. I believe that's May 28th. We set that at. One thing I will just add that this was another nod to our residents. I mean, obviously we want people to comply with the ordinance, but we wanted to make sure that we weren't, being overly presumptive during this time. With regards to vacant properties, I believe we still are doing the normal warnings and violation notices, but we are with occupied premises. We are doing I know I just approved a draft of it the other day. We are doing a very kind-hearted warning letter saying, hey, guess what? I know we're in unusual circumstances, but you still have to maintain your property, and would you please take care of the lawn? So, obviously when the lockdown expires, we'll begin as we normally have. But until that time, I think we're going to continue to see complaints of long grass. Mowing your grass is not disallowed during this time. I mean, it is something you can do. So please take care of your property.
Right. I think we had decided to not require action until the 28th. But I have gotten complaints on 2 streets so far. Troy was one of them, from a neighbor who said, my neighbor's grass is, up to my knees, and rats can be in there. And I think that it might be time, if we sent that letter out last week, to reconsider moving that date up a little to make sure that our city doesn't have fields growing. Is there discussion about that one?
Madam Mayor, may I just add to that? I mean, that's entirely up to city council. I mean, if you guys choose, you set this policy, if you choose to change it, that's entirely up to you. We'll adhere to whatever we're asked.
Right. I think we did review, and it wasn't an ordinance. There wasn't a vote. It was just a directive. So that could be amended. And is there interest in moving that date back?
I don't think we should adjust the date. Haven't we already communicated it out on some level that the date has been extended? I mean, that no actions will be taken, or what we already decided? I don't think we should. It's just been 2 or 3 weeks ago that we initially discussed it or made the decision. I don't think we should send out another message saying that we changed our minds already.
Any other feelings about it? Concerns?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I'm wondering if, instead of fining people before the 28th, if perhaps, and I don't know, city manager, the contents of the letter. I know we had discussed putting in the estimated cost or potential costs for mowing, for if the city has to cover the cost of mowing. Obviously, with all the rain we're getting, if someone isn't mowing their lawn for another 10 days, that's going to be a pretty expensive job for the city to do. If maybe we could continue to notice those houses, possibly even, I don't know if this is possible with COVID, but send a code enforcement officer to the door with proper PPE to explain to them the situation. I just wouldn't, with the backlog of the yard services just being allowed to operate recently. I'd hate to penalize somebody tomorrow if they're getting their yard cut on Friday, but at the same time, if they are not paying attention to the notices, they need to know that the city is going to cut their lawn at some point, and they're going to be charged hundreds of dollars for it, probably.
Yeah, and Councilmember Weiss, that's exactly what I have a copy of the letter right in front of me here. It does say that, the cost for the city to know it.
Would you read us the letter? You're the one that has the copy.
Sure. Real quickly here, the city of Oak Park is aware of the struggles everyone is facing during this unprecedented time of the COVID-19 pandemic. We know that some household projects and chores are taking a little longer to complete. It can be more costly than normal, including maintaining your lawn. Mayor McClellan and the rest of City Council are also aware of these difficulties. Therefore, they have issued a temporary moratorium on abating or ticketing tall grass violations. There will be no warning notices, abatements, or tickets issued until Monday, June 1st so that was like the first Monday that they were back. Because you also have to take in consideration the employees going out into the field and coming back into the office and so forth. Still, as a reminder, it's important to remember that Oak Park's Code of Ordinances permits lawns on residential properties to reach a maximum height of 8 inches. Excessive grass and weed height is not only a visual issue, but can also become a health and safety concern. For now, we are issuing this friendly reminder to please cut your grass and maintain your lawn properly. By Friday, June 1st, if the city has to issue a ticket or abate this blight issue for your property, the cost could exceed hundreds of dollars. Please help us avoid any of these problems by maintaining your lawn.
And we ask that a code officer go to these places and.
Well, we have staff to do that? We don't have the staff to do that, do we?
We have staff rotating in the field on a rotating basis, but we don't have staff all at one time, no. And I believe they would place this letter, I don't know if Director Barrett is still on the call, but they would place this letter in the door, if I'm not mistaken, or would they mail it? I don't know. Do we still have him?
I am on the call, Eric. We do have that letter, and we started today is actually the first day that anybody's received that letter and been notified, because we were given directive not to do anything at all until May 15th. And I think I filled it. Maybe some of the similar calls is that people are calling to report their neighbors, and there's some residents with 14, 16-inch grass, and we're not going to do anything or try to abate this until June 1st. And I can only imagine and wouldn't want to live next door to it.
Yeah.
So they're getting a warning now. They're being alerted to what's going to happen in the future. So I'm a little confused as to what we're doing right now. Were we talking about changing some of the deadlines or something in there? Because I thought we had decided the initial letter that went out would be a warning letter, and that everybody would have sufficient time after they received the warning letter. So I'm a little confused as to why we're revisiting it or looking to change it. Can somebody remind?
I'm confused about why would they need 2 weeks to, if they're getting the warning letter today?
But we already decided that a couple of weeks ago. I don't think we should go back and change it. We said that they needed 2 weeks. Some people have lawn services, some people don't. And we had given them the 2 weeks because the lawn services were just called back, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. So the city is being over complimentary, I believe. So I don't think we should change anything at this date. They have a warning letter. We already had decided on the 2 weeks. So would you feel that now 2 weeks is too long?
I guess because of all the rain and how much the grass is growing.
But we can't control that. We can't control that. So we are supposed to make adjustments each time it rains. We're going to be getting a lot of rain.
Well, I guess because I'm getting complaints from residents saying the guy next door isn't cutting his grass and it's high grass and there's possible rats in there and there are issues.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
When we originally wanted to give all the residents as much time as necessary, a large part of that, in my opinion, if I recall correctly, was based on that it would be difficult to get the supplies necessary to fire up your lawnmower, get a company out there to do the lawn, but that does not seem to be an issue anymore. I don't think there's any shortage that I've been able to see. And I think at this point, we probably should say it's time to cut your grass. You know, at the time that we made that decision and extended that kindness, it was based on the information available to us, but I think the information has changed. That's my opinion, my understanding.
You guys got to remember, today is the 19th. There's only 2 more weeks left, not even 2 good weeks left in the month.
Right. I think we've had enough time. I think it's time to cut people's grass.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
A question for the city manager. Is the letter technically a warning, even though it doesn't say it's a warning? Like, according to the letter, June 1st, we can come out and cut their yard if it's not taken care of by then?
No, it's very clear. It's not a warning. It is just a gentle reminder. So no, does not constitute an actual warning citation.
So we would not even be able to cut the yards on June 1st. We'd have to issue a warning on June 1st. Is that correct?
Correct.
So what if we just amended it to say that and I don't know for the houses that have already gotten the notice, maybe we send out another notice. I don't know how many have gotten that today, but that this letter is an official warning and that it has to be completed by June 1st. Is that possible?
Well, then, if I may, Madam Mayor, that would just be following this protocol we have in place now then. And, you know, except that you'd be giving them more time to comply than we do now. So
I think we should do that.
What's that? What's your recommendation?
Give warnings now.
Warnings.
I do have one more question for Rob, though.
I thought we were.
How many of those went out today?
I'm not sure exactly how many. I don't think we only had 2 code officers working today, and it was a lot of rain and so forth today. So I don't think a lot of those notices went out, but I'm sure they have a record. And I do get updates from our code officers, if I may, Eric, and just give a brief update. Is that, you know, we have 10,000 homes and we are talking about 1% or around 100 houses that are just really are not complying. And I think Assistant City Manager Yee or Deputy Director DeCoster can attest is once we get notices on these in June and issue orders for these 100 orders, they'll be cutting, they're going to spend a good part of half a day on each of these and maybe cutting them into the end of June. And God forbid, that's just rest of my comment. Thank you.
Okay.
So I thought these letters that went out were the initial warnings. I thought these letters were the initial warnings that were going out now, saying that by June 1st, if this is not done, then this is what's going to happen. I thought that's what the letter said.
These do not constitute a warning or a citation. These were simply letters as friendly reminders to, you know, follow the rules.
Yeah, I thought that, yeah, okay.
Did any of the 100 mow their lawns as a result of the letters? Or is it
out today?
Where they went out today and
it's been raining all day, so I'm pretty sure nobody mowed their lawn today.
Especially now that it's a foot long in the rain.
Yeah.
Is there a way to because I do think it's important to include in the letter, whether it's an official warning or not, how much the estimated cost would be or how much it could cost, because I think that is a motivation and also a warning to residents to make sure they take care of it themselves so they don't get charged.
I think he put it in there. He said it could cost several $100s.
Yeah, but I'm wondering if it's an official warning as opposed to just this reminder letter. Can we keep that language in there?
That it's an official warning, you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we would have to, you know, revise the current version of the letter to include that. And some of those letters have already gone out, obviously. So, but again, we'll do whatever we're asked to do. So
I don't think we should redo them and send out a different letter. We've already started with the first letter we created. I don't think we should change it. We should go with what we decided 2 weeks ago. We shouldn't change it just because we got some complaints from less than 1% of the residents. it's just not, to me, financially, it doesn't make any sense financially or using manpower.
Well, if we're waiting, if we have to wait to issue warnings until the beginning of June, and then we have to wait another week to start cutting lawns, as Director Barrett just pointed out, we're going to be cutting yards into July.
Well, that's going to happen no matter what we do. No matter what we do, they're going to have to wind up cutting yards. And some of them may take the initiative and do it themselves, but they're going to have to cut yards regardless. And I just don't think we're sending out a confusing message. We've already started on one path, and we already decided a couple of weeks ago to do it one way. And just because we got rain and we have complaints, like I said, I just don't think it's financially a good decision to make.
What do you see as the financial issue?
I'm sorry?
What do you see as the financial issue?
The manpower. The manpower that we're going to have to use to go back out and send out more letters. And then the time it's going to take to create new letters. And then the staff that's just going to be needed to create those letters. I mean,
letters are a big problem.
Everything has a cost. Everything has a cost associated to it.
Right, but I don't think that the letter is a big cost. I think what the cost is waiting 2 more weeks and having to, Director Barrett, what's the procedure if it's, high grass? What do they have to do to cut it?
They have to cut it maybe 2 or 3 times to get it down to the 2 inches or the 3 inches that it's supposed to be. So you're going to have some houses with, a lot of high grass. I don't doubt that. You're going to have some houses that the grass is going to be tall, but just not as tall. I guess all that I'm saying is that I just don't like switching gears in the middle after we've already made a decision to go one way. Because what you're asking,
could just do it for those houses that got the message and amend the letter for the ones that didn't get the letter.
But it's such a small percentage of the people, and we're doing this because a couple of neighbors complained about their neighbors' grass not being cut. So now we want to change what we decided a couple of weeks ago.
But the expense is not so much changing the letter. The expense is if you have to cut the grass, walk the grass to make sure that there's not rocks in there, cut it down low enough so that you can actually mow it and then mow it twice. That's the expense. That's huge.
Yeah, but we had already thought about
it's getting worse as we wait.
Madam Mayor.
We already discussed that, and maybe not I guess what bothers me the most is that we made a decision as a council collectively, and we knew that there was this 1% of people, a very small percentage of people out there, but now we want to change something for the 10 and not consider the 9,900. I mean, does that make sense? I mean, I
don't get it. What was your Solomon? What was your rather?
Mayor Pro Tem's point is well taken, but it's 9:10, and I don't think anybody's changing their minds on this. I think we should probably, vote our minds and move on.
Yeah. Move on.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Just a few questions. I know we had talked a little bit about this earlier. Are these homes where the grass is a problem, are they vacant? Do we know anything about the status of these homes, occupancy status?
Director Barrett, I know with unoccupied premises, I believe we are still operating as normal.
Correct. So I think it's a mixture of some homes are occupied that have the tall grass and some are not. And I think they may be rental units that aren't having their grass maintained.
So the non-compliance, is this worse during COVID-19, or is this about the rate we see every spring?
I would say it's the typical rate that we see. We're dealing with typically 1% of the residents on these type of issues. So I think there's about 100 houses out there and businesses. If you just drive Coolidge itself, you'll see several businesses that aren't cutting their grass either.
So why did the letter just go out today? I mean, we talked about this several weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Yeah.
I believe we had decided, because we initially, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Director Barrett, this should have taken place, the issuance of the citations or the warnings should have taken place a couple of weeks ago. But we decided to wait an additional 2 weeks, which is now to send out the letter. I believe they should have went out at the end of April. Is that correct?
Correct. We discussed this at my budget session, and it was determined by council to not start enforcing our weed and grass ordinance until May 15th, and do nothing to that point. And then at that point, send out a friendly, gentle letter and with some language in there advising them that please do it. And then if you don't, it's going to cost you hundreds of dollars come June.
So friendly, but basically we said we will enforce this.
Exactly. Effective June 1st.
Well, I really don't like seeing wild grass, and I know it can be a real nuisance. And living next door to somebody who doesn't cut his or her grass is problematic. I'm going to have to agree with Mayor Pro Tem Burns on this. I think we already kind of, we sent the letter, we can't rescind the letter, and we hope for compliance, but I think we're sort of in a pickle here. And I think we should just hope that these residents and business owners just take it upon themselves to cut their grass.
Okay, moving on. I think we are on call to the audience. I did notice there were a couple of notes from Don the 5th about.
Can you back up for a moment? Weren't we supposed to vote on this or something?
I don't think it's a vote. I don't think it was a vote to start with. I think it was just.
Oh, okay. A suggestion, a question. Okay.
Mayor, I can lead the public comment again if you like.
Yes, please, would you?
Yeah, so anyone who is joining us via Zoom, you can raise your hand, use the raise your hand feature. If you have a problem with that, just use the chat feature to let us know. But the raise your hand feature will be on the right-hand side. If you don't see the participants, click participants in the bottom of your page, and then at the very right, you'll see raise hand. And so I see 2 raised hands right now. I saw Ken Sherman first, so I'm going to unmute him. Just remember, it's a 3-minute timeline, just like in a normal meeting. So Ken, I'm going to unmute you right now. Go ahead.
Good evening, Council. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. My first point is regarding the library, and this is probably directed to the mayor since she sits on the library commission. I wondered if she could address at some point the lack of programming during the pandemic, especially in the absence tonight of the library director. And also there's a scheduled tomorrow library commission meeting. I wonder if that's going to be held, and if so, will the virtual information be posted somewhere? And lastly, I just wanted to commend the city on the good job that they're doing during the pandemic on behalf of the residents and the city. Thank you.
Thank you. The Director Van Vleck for the virtual library commission meeting tomorrow, the 19th, has the Zoom information gone out to the public?
I don't know if City Manager Tungate wants to speak on this. You're muted. There you go.
How can a member of the public, join the library board, which is an open meeting? How do they find out how to get on the Zoom and what number to call and all of that?
From what I understand, and I'd have to go back and confirm this, but from what I understand, the library board chose not to meet in May virtually, but that they would meet in June at their normally scheduled time, which would be the third Tuesday.
Why did they? I don't remember deciding not to meet in May.
That was my recollection. So I don't believe there is a library board meeting in May.
That's too bad. Can you speak to the lack of programming?
I can try.
Okay.
I know, I think everybody has to, recall that 7 days into her tenure, we had hired a new library director, and she had been here 9 days. 2 of those days she was in training. So she had literally been on the job for 7 days when this whole thing hit. So, so much of what has happened has really hit us off guard. And I think in terms of programming, the idea that we would be, handing out books and things like this, to me, is disruptive to the very nature of the lockdown, which you're handing out books to people and possibly passing on the virus. So one of the things I know the library board has been pushing, and Madam Mayor, you can probably speak to that better than I can because you're a member, but they've been pushing some story times. I know we have an employee over there doing story time. I know the mayor is doing story time. But more online programming. And then when they open back up, assuming that's simultaneous to the rest of the city operation, it's going to be a much different function. They're going to have separate computer labs and other things like that. But as far as other programming, I'm not an expert on this, but I don't know, Mayor, if you want to share anything. I'm not privy to other things that libraries are doing.
Right. I think I would like our director to research what other libraries are doing and maybe adopt some of those things during the time that she is working.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I just had a question. Are people able to renew their library cards right now if they're expired?
Yes.
Do we have our library director on the meeting?
I thought the library was closed.
Well, the library is supposed to be closed. That's the other precarious thing, is the governor's order right off the bat was very clear that libraries shall be shut down. And I think, most of that relates to the facility portion of the library, but it shut them down. It shut community centers and recreation facilities down as well.
There are online things so that people can access with a library card, whereas if your card was expired, you wouldn't be able to access it. So I don't know if there's a way for people to renew their library cards right now, since
I think
the
that
library's
Cheryl
closed.
Weiss had one that hadn't been renewed, and it was automatically renewed for her.
I don't know if we have our library director on, but if we do, if not, I would just ask the public to direct their concerns directly to either members of the board or the library director or myself.
Or call the library because they're answering the phone, correct?
Correct.
Yep. Call the library because somebody should be answering the phone all the time.
I don't see anyone else. I think Don had his hand up at one point. Don, I'm going to unmute you just in case you wanted to speak for public comment also. Don, you're unmuted if you'd like to speak for public comment.
I just want to thank the team for all they do for us so that I don't have to do it.
And then it doesn't look like we have anyone joining us via phone any longer. So where we would normally unmute them and call them by the first initial of their last name, it doesn't look like that we need to do that. Again, if anyone has a problem raising their hand, you can use the chat feature and we'll look for you. Mayor, it does not look like anyone else is participating in public comment.
Oh,
Jamie Horowitz had her.
notice-
Oh, I missed it then. Here we go. Jamie, I'm gonna unmute you if you'd like to speak. There you go.
Hi, everyone. No, I did not want to speak, but I'm glad to be here. Didn't mean to raise my hand. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Just as to I joined Friends of the Oak Park Library a while ago, and as to the programming, I would love to see us doing more like Facebook Live readings. And I think this is something, Mayor McClellan, we could talk about at our next meeting, even if just the board members could volunteer doing Facebook Live reading stories to children. That's something super easy to generate more traffic and more interest. And I know that Andrew Sissel, who is the treasurer, is working hard at figuring out how to generate online donations.
Great. Thank you. I think earlier Don commented on the business, the plan that Director Maroney had to help business, and he felt it was a smart move. Also, he's got some comments down as we went on. If there's no one else from the audience that would like to speak, Mayor Pro Tem Burns, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, everyone, staff, for the wonderful, wonderful job you guys have done in regards to the budget, in regards to assisting our businesses, and in regards to the COVID-19 response plan. I am so proud to say that I work for a city that is being proactive and takes care of their employees in all aspects of everything. Be safe and have a pleasant evening and stay dry.
Thank you. Councilmember Radner.
Have a good night, everybody.
Councilmember Weiss.
I could not have said it better than Mayor Pro Tem Burns. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to our residents for hanging in there. I know it's hard, but please continue to be safe. Please continue to social distance. We'll get through this together. Stay safe and have a good night.
Thank you. Councilmember Edgar.
I'm just going to echo what Mayor Pro Tem Burns said. I think the city's done a fabulous job shepherding us through this crisis. I am really happy that we have a response to that we're going to make sure that our businesses don't suffer too much. Kim has a great plan, and the budget looks great. I'm glad we're going to emerge with some surplus. I think it's really a testament to how well Oak Park is run. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you so much. I would like to end with a smile because it was kind of an intense meeting. There was a bear broke into a cabin in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And what did he steal? He stole peanut butter cups, M&Ms, Sour Patch Kids, 2 beers, and 2 Diet Cokes. That, have a good evening.
It's a bear after my own heart.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.